And kind of an interesting thing, they just kind of do like a 4 years later, right? Which I mean, I guess makes sense because they don't focus like on the recovery and everything that's going on there. It's just kind of like, yeah, it happens, and then 4 years later, we have Rita meeting or Emilia meets Rita, right? Rita obviously doesn't know who it is originally, but kind of like talks about it a little bit, and then that's when she picks up on like, oh, wait a minute, you are Manitas, and now you're Emilia. And we see Emilia wants to have her family brought back to Mexico. And I feel really bad that both of us came up with this same joke of the Mexican Mrs. Doubtfire. I feel terrible that that's what that came down to, but it is kind of hard to ignore that piece of the puzzle because it just kind of.
It opened the door and we went in. I mean,
I agree. It definitely set it up for that with its execution. But yes, I just want to call that out because you had texted me the night before, and I'm like, darn it, you said that joke. I had that joke in my script. We're both thinking about the same thing. And this is, to me, where it kind of moves away from the focus on the transition to more of the focus on the whole drug cartel aspect of it. And this is where I feel like the movie's trying to like go and touch too many things, and it's delineating the story. Because Emilia and Rita, right, they're kind of, as they meet together, they meet kind of like this random lady who just happens to have a missing child. And this prompts Emilia to help find this lady's like deceased son. And this is what kind of opens up this idea of like, oh, hey, I can make an organization where I can help like parents find their deceased kids that are part of like cartels. And talk about bringing things hollow, right? Like, this is why you can't have Emilia be a drug cartel person, because all I can think about all this time is like, okay, you were causing all this, right? Like, you were killing people, I'm sure, in your role as a drug cartel person. Now you want to show like empathy or sympathy for people, and like for an audience member, I can never grasp that. Like, I could never like this character because, number one, you never showed us the type of character they are, and number two, you make them a drug cartel. So like my inclination is that this is, you know, a violent person that's always out there attacking people. There's infighting. So like you create this like very I would say like unsympathetic character, and you're trying to make us feel sympathetic, and it just doesn't work, because all I could think about the whole time is, you know what, some of these people that you're helping, you probably caused them, their loved ones, to be dead. And it just totally sucked me out of it. So I want you to talk about that, because I feel like that is a very big part of this movie.
I throughout the entire movie, I get the sense that Emilia was very much a selfish person. I mean, well, because first of all, as Manitas, he doesn't really consider, you know, how his family would react or what they would have to go through if they found out that he was transitioning to a female, right?
Yes.
So that's why he goes to the whole, you know, song and dance of faking his own death and sending him off to Switzerland to, you know, live a life of luxury while he goes and, you know, disappears and becomes an entirely different person. And then start an organization looking for you know, I mean, let's be honest, victims of his own crimes, really.
Yeah.
Because I when I'm watching those scenes, I'm thinking these are probably the victims of people that you know, whose deaths you ordered, right? Whether at your hands or at the hands of your insubordinates, and now you're trying to make good on it. And I couldn't help but think, you know, a lot of these people, you know, apart from wanting to know what happened to their loved ones, are also seeking justice. They want justice for the person who did all of this, right? So I'm sure a lot of them are aware. Yeah, it was Manitas del Montes who, you know, who ordered the hits and killed these people, and now he died in an accident. And I guess we can get some sort of closure right there. But at the same time, I'm wondering, like, how shitty must you be to be the person, who's going and trying to, do good on this when you were the ones who perpetrated the crime in the first place?
Yes.
It,
Yeah.
it's it's really
Completely agree.
it's really two-faced when you think
Yeah.
about it,
I,
because
I
and I'll say this. I mean, I mean, it kind of portrays, people of the LGBTQ community in a bad light, and I read this on Wikipedia and other sites where a lot of people have said, this movie does nothing but just portray us as, liars. And at first I was a little bit confused, but as I was watching those scenes over and over again, I'm thinking they're absolutely right. Like, there's no saving grace to Emilia Perez, because even if she is doing something that would seem ostensibly good, you kind of have to wonder what her motivations are, really.
yes. Yeah, I
And
agree
I would
because
and I would go so far as to say she can come off and say, "Yeah, I mean, it was Manitas who did it, but I'm not Manitas. I'm Emilia. So technically,
yes.
I can't be held responsible for that." And it's like,
That's
no, like, no. I mean, you and Manitas are one and the same. Like, you should be held, just as much responsible for these crimes as Manitas. Regardless of what you say or do.
I
Right?
agree. I think they try to get involved, and I get what they're going for, right? They're wanting to show that rebirth, right? So Manitas' training has changed into Emilia Perez. This is her opportunity to start over a fresh life, but to I think both of our points, right? You can't just do that, right? Like, this is not like one of those things where it's like, oh, like I have this symbolic reawakening. It doesn't work when you have that much red in your background.
No,
There's
but I'll say this. Like, I will applaud Amelia for trying to make good on that, but I feel
oh
like,
sure,
but I feel like at the same time, it's like, I mean,
too little, too late.
yeah, exactly. And you also have to wonder too, like, and I'll probably keep beating this over and over again. What's really her motivation? Because you see later on, she meets another lady, and then she ends up shacking with her, and they end up having
Oh,
a little bit of an affair. So then you're like, oh, okay, so
it's
now you're using this to kind of, get some action. Like,
oh yes,
what's
thank you,
going
thank
on
you. And,
here?
let's just segue into that, right? Because that to me was so messed up, right? Because she meets up with this
Epiphania.
female. Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. Well, I forgot the name. I didn't write it down. So, but meets up with her, right? And this lady, she goes there to meet Amelia to figure out like something about her deceased husband, who, like I said, was obviously a piece of shit, right? Like, she talked about like attacked her and did all this terrible things. Guy's obviously probably deserves to be dead if we're being realistic with everything.
Yeah.
But we're watching that, right? And we see Amelia be like, yeah, the guy's dead, and they kind of like bond over this. And it's like, as she's leaving, right, as she just met this person, she's just like, oh hey, we should like meet up and stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's disgusting. Like, that's so wrong to me. Like, there's like no moral compass there. Like, that's like literally going to the morgue, having some guy that's there be like, yep, that's the dead person, be like, hey, what you doing later? Like, that's just disgusting.
If we can dig back to our Catholic school days, it's sort of like, the whole story with David and Bathsheba, right? David falls in love with Bathsheba, but she's already married. So what does he do? He sends her husband up to the front lines and purposely has him killed, so then he can sort of shack up with her. It sort of reminded me of that in a way,
It's
because
it it was a very poor choice, right? Because I think, once again, this goes to us wanting to show that we want to like this character, right? Like, if you're gonna go through all this, you have to actually like depict a character that we want to get behind. So yes, like helping, having a character like help loved ones get, just kind of that closure about what happened to their loved ones. Hey, that's good. Even though we're just gonna ignore the fact that the person that's helping do all that had a hand probably in a good chunk of those. But on top of that, now you're gonna have this, like, you're gonna have like Amelia just kind of like, really kind of almost like it's like this person is such a vulnerable state, like they're in an emotional crisis, and you're taking advantage of them. Like that is just like I just could not get over how like disgusted I felt dirty watching that.
But,
Because I'm like,
but that's what I'm saying, because throughout the
oh yeah,
entire
no,
movie,
I agree. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like Emilia is a very selfish person at her
yes,
core,
yes.
because because you would think someone who is trying to create a new slate. I mean, if they want to transition to a female, that's fine. If they want to make up for the crimes of their past, that's fine also. But I mean, but the way that she goes about doing it is just so it's just so awful. It's like
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing about her that you would feel is is commendable. And as we go further and further into the movie, you sort of begin to ask yourself, are we supposed to root for Emilia? Because
Yes.
what we've seen so far, hasn't really played out too well.
Agreed. So so yeah, and I'm gonna take a slight detour here, right? Because we're near the third act, and I do want to talk about this one song, right? The song called El Mal, right? This is the song that it won the Golden Globe for best score, best original song.
Mhm.
And I wanted to get like kind of your feedback on that. Right now, I didn't go through and watch all the other like original song nominees. I just watched El Mal, so this is the sequence just to be sure we're on the same page, because I had to go out of my way to obviously look up the song and verify. This is the song where Zoe Saldana's in like the red suit, and they're at the like donor ball or whatever that they're there for. So I wanted to get your feedback, right? What did you think about that song? Knowing that this is the song that ended up winning the Golden Globe for Best Original Song.
I mean, the only thing I can say is, if this is what the Golden Globes and the Oscars thinks is great, then we've really sunk in terms of movie quality at this point.
No, I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was okay. I kind of got into it, but to think about that being the best original song just didn't really work for me. Like I think that Zoe Saldana did like kind of a good job with, I guess, call it like rap rock or something. So I thought it was okay. Now I do remember like seeing, and I forget what the name of the song was, but it's from the Challengers, which I think was a better song overall. I felt like that one was more deserving. I don't remember the title of it. But but I wasn't as bothered by it, but I was kind of shocked to see that was deemed kind of the best original song. But I don't think I maybe disliked it as much as maybe you disliked it.
Well, I'm not a fan of musicals in general, so I mean,
yes,
that's not really saying much.
So